Welcome to the webinar you didn't know you needed, Online Pedagogy. It's not just tech tools. And I'm Helene Marshall, and I'm going to be taking you on this journey. So I welcome you all, and I hope that you enjoy this and learn a lot. Now, the first thing is to have a word from our sponsor. Our sponsor is New York State TESOL. This is a webinar sponsored by my state organization. And so you can join this organization for only $20.20, get it? And it helps support our advocacy and professional development on behalf of educators of ELS all year. So please join. And in the chat, you will see a link to join. It's also on the web page that I'm showing on the slide. Okay. Now, the other thing is some of you I know are looking for CTLE credits, and that's one of the reasons you're here, not the only reason. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, you probably don't need the CTLE credits, but you can get an hour's worth of credit for this webinar by joining Nice TESOL with our discount code, join 2020, and then going to the link. Nice TESOL webinar has a special link for getting CTLE credit. So all of that's going into the chat, and you can click on those things. Don't do it now, do it after the webinar. I want you to be here. All right, so now we're gonna start with the first poll. So poll number 1. This is poll number 1. There'll be a few polls. Here's your first poll. Your first poll, please tell the truth. Tell the truth. Did you do the pre-work? Because this is Flip PD. I don't like it when people just sort of come and sit and get, okay, give me your webinar, I'm here. I ask you to do something ahead of time. There was a video, there were questions, and another video. There were 2 videos actually. If you did not do the pre-work, now I'm going to give people a chance to answer. There are a few more people who can answer. So if you just came in, please answer the poll. Let's get everyone to answer. Participate. Let's go. Participate. Answer the poll. Be honest. Be truthful. It's anonymous. No one knows it's you. Okay, I'm going to end the poll and share the results so you can see that most people who are here did the pre-work. Yay! You guys are great. All right. If you did not do the pre-work, go do it now. So there's a link in the chat for you to go and do the pre-work. The link is on the slide, but it's also going to go into the chat momentarily. And you want to go and do the pre-work. Now, don't do the video because you see me now, that's fine. But I'd like you to answer the questions. So answer the questions. You'll feel better about the whole video if you answer the questions. So please go now and do the pre-work. Do the pre-work, okay? And the chat should have the link, all right? Pedagogy 41020, all right? Please go and do the pre-work, and we will see you shortly. You won't miss much, believe me. You won't miss the main part of this webinar. Just go and do it and come back. All right. Now, I'd like to talk for a minute to those of you who did the pre-work. And let me explain that you never want to be punitive about pre-work, but pre-work is really important. You need to be firm. It's really important when you do online learning that students be actively engaged. And so being actively engaged means for them to do something before they come to you, before they come to whether it's your class or your training or whatever. It starts them being in an active mode, as you know from what you answered. I asked you to talk about online learning and your background a little bit. I even asked you where you lived, some fun questions, okay? So it's kind of important to do that. And what happens eventually is if you're firm about the pre-work, you'll find that because of peer pressure and FOMO, fear of missing out, they'll start doing it and it'll be a routine and you'll have it as part of, just part of your online instruction, that there's pre-work, okay? All right, and everything will flow better for you if you do insist on the pre-work. So now we welcome everyone back, the people who left to do the pre-work, welcome back. So now you feel all ready for the webinar. So we're going to start with our mantra. Our mantra for this webinar is, or for everything I do, is create fertile spaces. This is the mantra because I like to think of pedagogy not as covering curriculum, meeting standards, or delivering instruction. I like to think of it as creating fertile spaces. Where does that come from? Well, creating, think of Bloom, Bloom's taxonomy. You're educators, right? The top of Bloom, what is it? Creating. So why aren't we creating? And in fact, we are, in a way, online, creating something new. Not totally from scratch, because many of us are teaching what we were teaching before, but we are, in a sense, creating a new course, a course that's going to look pretty different, teaching that's going to look pretty different. And then spaces are certainly different. We're not sitting in a classroom right now. We are teaching in spaces, online spaces. And there are many different ways to create spaces, individual, group, whole group. There's a lot of spaces that you can create online, but they are going to be online spaces. So you have to think a little bit differently about space when you're teaching online. And then the last piece, that word in the middle, fertile, that's what we're going to spend most of our time on today, is how do you make these spaces you're creating fertile for teaching and learning? All right, and that's what I'm going to be working with you on. How do you do that? All right, so because it's a mantra, I'm not going to ask you to put on your mic, but I want you to say it. You can close the door. If you're home alone, fine. If there are other people around, so what? Here we go. At the count of 3, you're going to say your new mantra, create fertile spaces. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Create fertile spaces. Okay, great. You've said your mantra. And now I'm going to get more specific about the mantra. We create fertile spaces with the 4 E's. What are the 4 E's? Equity, enrichment, engagement, and empowerment. Now, in a longer session that focuses even more on these, I talk about them in terms of culturally responsive education, and I talk more about English learners, which is my area. But today we're going to do an awareness level generic introduction to the 4 E's and what they mean when you're going online. So providing equity. Well, providing equity is something we always have to think about in education, but especially online, you have to think differently about it because some students have more access than others in terms of the technology that they can use and that they have available to them. So you have to think right away in terms of access. How are your students going to have access to what it is you want to provide? That's your first step. Okay, and I know that it's something that concerns many people because of the questionnaires I've sent out when I say, what's your most pressing issue involving online learning? Many people say that many of their students don't have access. And I was just talking with someone from Utah this afternoon who was giving me that exact question about access. And I said, well, you know, a phone. Even if someone has a phone, there's a lot they can do with the phone, and someone in the family is likely to. The next thing is enrichment. And the reason enrichment is even more important, I know you like to enrich your instruction, but with online instruction, if you don't enrich it, you're dead in the water because they're at home, they're surrounded by all kinds of enticing things, videos and such, and there's a lot of competition. You want to make sure that what you're providing is enriching, give them the motivation, integrative and intrinsic motivation. We don't want external, extrinsic motivation, you know, points and grades and tests. We want them to really be motivated to do what you're trying to get them to do online. And the third is that leads to engagement. Because if people are motivated, they're going to be engaged. And if they're engaged, they're going to give you active participation. And you can't teach people if they're not interactive. If you can't touch them online, if you don't know what's going on with them, it's very hard to actually have instruction take place. So they have to be participating. They can't just be passive. They can't just watch a video. That's not going to work. Okay. So they have to be actively participating. And the result of that is they feel empowered. And I like to use the expression, I didn't come up with this, but I like it, that empowerment is not a transitive verb. You don't empower people. People empower themselves. They feel empowered. So once you get them actively engaging in the instructional process, they will feel empowered. And that means they'll have ownership of the learning experience. And then you know you've succeeded in online pedagogy, because it's a lot tougher to get to that ownership point with people at a distance. So this is a kind of a summary of what we're going to go to in great detail. So this is an opportunity if you want to do a screenshot. Some of you like to do screenshots. I just would like you to always, I have intellectual property, so you notice that, and this is my work. I just want to show you in the upper left, you see creating fertile spaces. I put that for everything I do. And SOFLA is on the upper right. That's another webinar I do, and I've written a lot of articles on SOFLA. That's my specific online instructional model, synchronous online flipped learning approach. And if you're interested in that, the Nice TESOL site has recording of those webinars. I've done those already. I did them last week. Okay, and then on the lower left and the lower right, you see MALP, that's my logo, and on the left, MALP LLC, and in the middle, malpeducation.com. So everything that I present is under that registered trademark of MALP. So I just ask you to respect that. Okay, I won't need to mention that again. But what we do need to mention again is join Nice TESOL. We promised to do this more than once, you know, and I don't want to nag you, but join Nice TESOL, apply for your CTLE credit. Okay, and there you go, another opportunity. And now we'll do poll number 2. Poll number 2. Okay, poll number 2 is prior knowledge and experience. So I'd like you to give me some idea of where you are. Where are you with online learning? Okay, you're brand new this spring, help! Or you've taught some online components of courses, or you've taught an entire course or courses online, or you can support others in teaching online. So let's see who we have in the room. So please answer best according to you. What is applicable for you? Okay. And again, we have a small number responding out of the number total. Okay, but that's okay. We're going to end the poll so we can move on. And I'll share the results. So you can see here that we have some people who are brand new. Stay calm. I'm here to help. Okay. And then we have some people who have actually taught entire courses online. So we have a range, which is normal for something like this. Okay. All right, let's move on. So we're going to start with equity. And for each of the E's, this is the first E, I'm going to give you a slide that's a summary of everything we're going to talk about. And then we're going to go into in more detail everything on the slide. So this is our summary slide, our general slide on providing equity. Okay, so here we go. So first, schema. Now, I know a lot of you know schema theory. You've thought of it. Some of you have even taught it. But what has schema theory got to do with equity? Plenty. I'll tell you why. There are 3 schemata. There's the language, the content, and the formal schema, which is the way things are presented. Now, think about this. When you're teaching content, and if you're teaching language learners or you're working at all in areas of language, you have to think about teaching the language. And the formal schema is the way that you're doing it. And if they're new to the US, they may have a lot of speed bumps with that. But look what's happening now. The entire way you're teaching is changing because you're teaching online. So that formal schema is weighing everything down. So my advice to you is, because everything is leaning towards the formal schemata, what you really need to do is not worry so much in the beginning about the other schemata and concentrate on teaching them how to learn online. Make that your teaching. That's the main focus, because if you try to mix that in with whatever else you're trying to teach at the same time, it's too much of an overload. And if all the schemata are unfamiliar at once, you can't learn. So that's the main piece of why schema theory is so important. Now, my journey, your student's journey. Okay, just to make you feel a little better, I started with a course on audio and webcam in 2003. My university had a grant to support faculty, and I took them up on it. 2003. It took me 5 years before I could actually teach online. 5 years. I didn't start teaching online until 2008. That's 5 years later, right? And then, even then, I wasn't doing anything synchronous. I was doing everything asynchronous. And gradually, I started doing more robust instruction and developed SOFLA and became an online instructor and helping other people learn. So look at my journey. That's a long journey. Now, your journey, you're taking a journey now, and you just told me some of you are brand new. Some of you have already started on your journey, but you need to cut yourself a little slack. It took me a long time to do this the way I'm doing it now, teaching, okay? So you have to do it, turn on a dime because of a situation you're in that you didn't control, you couldn't control, and you're in this situation. So take a deep breath, give yourself permission, and rely on people like me. We're here to help. Okay, now, your student's journey? Oh my God. So think about what they have to do. You're already familiar with your subject matter. You're learning a new way to teach it. And that's tough enough. But they have to learn what you're teaching them, and they have to learn it in a new way. So as I said, all those schemata operating. So think about their journey. They really have the toughest journey of all. And then I just put the word sentimental. I have a few little older person humor here. Because it's been for me a sentimental journey, and I get sentimental about it when I think about starting out in 2003 and look where things are now. So that's really interesting. Okay, providing equity, the helping hand. This is one of my favorite activities. So the helping hand activity says, okay, you'd have some of your students are going to be very techie and others are not, right? And some of them can even help you. So the idea is that everybody's good at something and they can help each other. Some people might be better at, a video piece, or somebody else might understand how to do a blog, or so they can help each other, the helping hand. You can even make a chart, and you can have, I need help with, I can help with. And you can do it with your students, and together they can share what they can help each other with. That's very, very important in building a community online, is that you're going to be helping each other, and you should include yourself in that. And there's no reason why you can't have the helping hand activity be a regular part of what you do. Okay, and I would start it at the very beginning, because the more you front load all of this new schemata, the formal schemata I'm referring to, the more you front load all of that and start it in the beginning, the more comfortable they'll be learning the material. So again, the helping hand is not focusing on the content so much as equity in accessing curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Okay, now, next is build in redundancy. Okay, I learned this the hard way. I'm saving you a lot of trouble. So, people look for things in different ways and feel comfortable accessing material in different ways. So whenever I present something to my students, I give them many ways to be exposed to it. I will give them a video version. I will give them a Word document, a PDF document. I will give them some PowerPoint slides, okay? Options, a website, the same information presented in different ways, because different people learn, as you know, in different ways. So you have to have those many different pathways. You can't say, oh, well, I posted it. Well, maybe that wasn't as helpful to some people. Or you say, oh, I put up a video about it, video tutorial. Maybe they want to read it, okay? So everybody's different. The second is you want to use different places that you put things. So when you have the input, you want the input to be in different locations. So some people are going to look for it in one place, some are going to look for it in another place, and you get a lot of, I can't find it, I don't know where it is. I went the wrong way to look for it. I just talked about these in opposite order. It's okay. So they might look in one place and you say, well, I put it under assignments, or I put it under whiteboard activities, or wherever you put it, they didn't look there. So you should put things in more than one place because people are going to look in different places. Okay, that's another very important, best practice for online that gives them equity, so they don't feel like everybody else gets it, everybody knows what's going on, but I don't. You want them all to feel that they have equal access to material. So those are some key things. Now, the next thing is you've got to be on top of it and take the temperature much more than usual when it's online, because you can very easily lose somebody. So you want to always find out how it's going, what's happening. Usually in most platforms, you can check when did they last come online, and you know what they last did because you can see their tasks. And if it's been a while and they haven't participated, you want to find out why, what's going on. Never in a punitive way, always, everything okay? Everything okay? I noticed this, I noticed that, I noticed you didn't post in the discussion, I noticed that you didn't go online, I noticed that blah, blah, blah. Everything okay? Take the temperature. However, no matter what you do, even if you do everything I just said, somebody's going to get behind, because that's what happens when they're learning online. They get behind. So here's the cardinal rule. You cannot catch up in an online class once you get behind. You have to jump onto the train in the class where the class is. And that's true even if it's cumulative, even if what you're teaching is cumulative, because the student needs to get in with the current lesson, and then they can see, oh, this I get, but this I'm going to have to go back and figure out. And so they backfill as needed rather than try to catch up. So it's very important that principle, because your students will try to catch up. They're going to get behind. So that's why if you take the temperature, you'll know they're behind, and you'll tell them, don't try to catch up. I want you to do this week's work, and then we can work backwards. And you keep taking the temperature, right? So that's equity. Now, one more time for the folks in the back. Review. What does equity get you? What are we trying to get with equity? What's the point of equity? Put it in the chat. What's the point of equity? Who remembers the seminal slide at the beginning where I showed you the 4 E's? What are we getting for equity? What do we get with equity? One word. One word. What's the word? What is it for? What are we getting with equity? Okay, and the answer is access. We get access, okay? Equity gets you access. All right, now on to the next E. The next E is adding enrichment. I have 4 ideas for you. I'm sure you could come up with more. This is a webinar. This is not an interactive session. If we were doing a PD and a training session, we would all generate ideas. We'd put things up on the whiteboard together, but this is a webinar. So I'm going to give you 4 ideas and a cardinal rule. Let's go. Be our guest. Okay, so one way to enrich online learning is to have guests join your group. They can join your group asynchronously or synchronously. They can come and you can have an entire discussion forum with the guest, and the students can ask the guest, and the guest can answer questions. This can be an expert of some kind. It can be anybody. When I teach online, I always have guests come in. When I teach multicultural perspectives, I have my Hmong friend from Minnesota, Andy Shong. He comes in and they ask him questions and talk to him about his experience as a Hmong coming to the United States as a refugee. In my second language acquisition class the other night, I had a young man come in who was someone who had learned many languages, both in class and naturally. And we were talking about how is it different to learn languages in these different ways. And he did a presentation, and then the students asked him questions. Everything was recorded. That was live. That was synchronous. So you can do it either way. I even have them go and watch a video of, I had them go watch Steven Pinker. He's great, by the way, does great videos. And that was asynchronous, but I considered that a guest because then I asked them Later, okay, what surprised you? What puzzled you? What inspired you? Let's talk about the thinker video, as if he had been a guest speaker in the class. So you have a lot of ways to do guests. I even had a guest professor come in and teach a session for me, Dr. DeCapo, because she and I write books together, and she's really great at second language acquisition. I had her come in. Tonight you have somebody else. I'll just sit here and drink my water. Next idea, right from the headlines. Okay, I don't care what you teach, you can connect it to what's happening in the world. And that's an important piece online because they're not with you. They're out there somewhere. So what you need to do is connect with everything else that's out there because they're being bombarded by all kinds of stories and news and things going on. And regardless of what you teach, I guarantee there is some connection to what's happening in the world today. And it's clearer when I teach my multicultural course, obviously, but let's say you're teaching physics and a famous physicist just died. Well, that, sad, but read the bio. What contribution did that person make to the field of physics? That's a connection. I think it just gets enrichment. Enrichment is anything that goes beyond your standard syllabus, your standard curriculum. You want to enrich, you want to bring them in and get them excited, right? Okay. The next way to do it is field trips. Now, it's funny because today, I work one-on-one with many faculty members at my institution. And one of them was saying to me, well, she teaches this course where she has all the students come to her office and she shows them the different aspects of her work. She does developmental psychology and she shows them different facilities that are provided for people. And she said, I can't do that anymore. I said, of course you can. Get your friend to get your phone, make a video, go from place to place and talk to them, make the video, and they can do a virtual visit. Okay, so here's only one site. This is Discovery Education, but there's so many at all ages, all subjects, anything you want to do, there's a virtual trip. My personal favorite is the New York Tenement Museum, which has an amazing virtual tour. Some of these tours are even live. You can sign up your class for a certain day and time, and they actually do a live virtual tour, believe it or not. Okay, but in any case, that's a great way to add enrichment to your course. The other thing is games. I'm not that big on games, but most people are. So my students kind of like doing Jeopardy at the end to review everything. This wouldn't be them. This just looks like the weather. But mine do it for my linguistics class because there's a lot of they need to remember. But Jeopardy's only one. There are hundreds of ways you can incorporate games as an educational experience and enrich your instruction. So game it, guys. And if this, again, we're more interactive, and if you feel like you want to share in the chat at any time, any ideas you get, everyone else will see. So it's really important to think in terms of games and sharing. Other people can share games with you, you share with them. Any ideas you get, you share. Okay, next one is it's all in the family. This is another way to enrich your online instruction. All in the family. So when I teach, I always open it up and everybody has a webcam and they have their pets, their kids, we keep it very warm. I know one of the things when I first presented back in 2003, when I was first learning about online, I did a session down at the Brooklyn campus of my university. And I had actual people that I knew online and around the world come into the session. And what the title of the session was Online Learning. Is it cold or is it warm? So I'm trying to show you how warm it can be. It can be warm. And one of the ways it could be warm is we're fine with people having pets. We're fine with people's kids saying hello, coming into the session. And it's kind of a nice way to make people feel more comfortable because they're not actually with you. And so what I'd like to do now, we're about halfway through the webinar, so I'd like to invite everybody to turn on their webcams, and I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. And I'm actually going to stop sharing and ask you to go to gallery view and turn on, and let's see, does anyone have kids or pets with them? Does anyone have anything? make it gallery view. Click on gallery, and we can all see each other. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. See, we're here. Hi, you're here. Everyone's by themselves. What is this? No kids, no pets, no nothing, huh? Oh, there we go. I love it. Kira, that's funny. Okay, good. All right, so everyone gets the point. Oh, there we go. We got Karen now. Tip your camera a little bit. Get in frame so we can see you. All right. Does everyone see the difference this makes? Makes a big difference, right? Okay. All right. Let's go back. Go back to the business of the webinar. All right. So all in the family. Next, the cardinal rule of enrichment. What's the cardinal rule? Make no assumptions. And why do I say that? Because you want to enrich it by playing a game, but maybe you have a student like me. I'm not that into games. Okay. But maybe you have a guest speaker and maybe there's some issue with that guest speaker. Maybe it resonates with some people, not others. So it's good to do all of these wonderful things, but make sure you're staying tuned. Is it resonating? Who with, who not? And always offer options. Okay, so you can say, I'd like you to do this, but if you'd rather, there's this option. Okay, and that's the potatoes. And you can see all the different kinds of potatoes. And again, this is me. Why I use the potatoes is because you say potato when I say potato. Okay, anyway, all right. It just helps to make the point, right? Okay, if you know me, you know me. If you don't, you probably think I'm nuts by now, but stay with me till the end. Okay, one more time for the folks in the back. Let's do enrichment. What does it get us? What do we get? When we really enrich our courses online, what are we gonna get? What do you get? Motivation. We get motivation. We get them motivated, right? They've got to be motivated. Enrichment will do it. Equity, enrichment. Let's go to the third one, which is engagement. Now, engagement is really important. Of course, right? We want them to engage. They have to engage. Otherwise, they're not going to learn. So there are three, and Christine knows, but she's not going to give it away. The three most important items for engagement online. Think about what they might be. Engagement. What might they be? Well, I'll show you what they are. Okay, anybody in real estate? The three most important items? Okay, so what you need, hands down, is interaction. There's never too much interaction. There's no such thing. All right, you want constant interaction as much as possible. And there's our cardinal rule. We'll get to it at the end of the piece on interaction. Here we go. So interaction is going to be asynchronous and synchronous. So let's look at asynchronous first. Here are some different ways to interact asynchronously. Now, I'm not going to talk about all of them in this short webinar, but I'm going to highlight my favorite ones that I think maybe you're less familiar with. Okay. The first one is video lessons. Let's talk about those. So video lessons are your kind of instructional time where there's usually teacher talk and you're explaining something. At higher ed, it would be lectures and might be a little mini lesson at the rug if you're teaching the little ones. So it could be take any form, whatever, but it's the material, the direct instruction. What you do is you put it into a lesson, which you can do through PowerPoint if you like, and then you make a video of that, but you have to embed questions and interactions to make it a lesson. And I have tools, and I explain in another webinar, entirely different webinar that's much more technical, and I go into exactly how to create your video lessons and what to do with them, but you want to embed questions, higher order, lower order, everything. You can embed all kinds of activities, and they can't continue the lesson until they respond, and you can download the data, and the data you download helps to inform your instruction going on. It's part of that taking the temperature. It's also part of the interaction, okay? So those are video lessons. I highly recommend that you do video lessons. The other are interactive textbooks. Now, interactive textbooks are kind of new. What happens is, and I think it really speaks to young people, I might not prefer it myself this way, but I think a lot of young people would. So what happens is you are running your textbook inside a platform, and in that platform, the book is there as an ebook, and the students can highlight pieces and talk about it together asynchronously. So they go in, they highlight something. Wow, I never knew this. I always thought so-and-so. Or what do you guys think about this? I don't think it's a good idea, or this doesn't make any sense to me. Anybody can help me? And they have conversations, just like social media. They can even like and rate, you know, they can like it, love it, whatever the comments the other people make. So they feel like they're on social media, but they're in the textbook. So it's kind of cool, all right? So that's new, that's just showing up now, and it's popular with teachers because they can't actually be with the students when they're reading, when they're working with the textbook. So this is a new trend. Now, if you want, you know, you probably want to know tools. So for video lessons, I'll tell you what I use. For video lessons, I use PlayPosit. It's go.playposit.com, which you could go to very easily. And I show it in other webinars. Go.playposit.com. The free version is pretty good, actually. The paid version, which is not that expensive, gives you the downloading of data. The interactive textbooks that I use is called Perusall. It's perusall.com, Perusall, perusall.com. And most publishers have collaborated with them, so you should be able to get any textbook. I don't say any textbook, but a lot of textbooks. But you know, I just gave you those two. Those happen to be what I use. This is not about tech tools. And I told you that at the very title of the webinar. It's not just tech tools. So don't worry so much about the tools. Think about the concepts. Let's go on. The other ones that I think you know pretty well. All right, synchronous. What can you do synchronously to interact? Interactions synchronously. Well, we have the video lessons again, but that's always an option to do synchronously. You can do a video lesson by having the video and pause it in real time and have the students answer the questions in the chat or with an audio. So you can still do the video lessons. You could have prepared the video in advance, but stop it at any moment. And that way you're interacting with your students in real time with the video lessons. So you can do it that way, all right? The other piece I want to mention that's really, really popular is peer instruction. It's wonderful. In fact, my students said that was their favorite part of the whole course. I have them each pick a piece and they teach it to the other students. I have them do it usually in the breakout rooms, in small groups, not for the whole class because that's a little scary, but they can do that and they can go in and they can teach a tiny piece, and then but they have to do the same thing I do with my video lessons. They make a little video, just 5 minutes, and they put in little questions and they ask the class in real time, in the synchron. They make the video ahead, but then they, in the synchronous session in the breakout room, they pause and ask questions. And then at the end, they have to give a quiz and find out if the students understood and learned it. And I download the data from the quiz. So I find out whether the peers actually did the instructions they were supposed to do. So just for example, I had one of my students do the 3 pronunciations of the past tense. Now, looked, learned, wanted. They're all 3 different. If you're an ESL teacher, you know what I'm talking about. If you're not, don't worry about it. But it's the idea is that what I'm trying to say is that you have to pick a very narrow piece for them to teach because they're not teachers. You pick a little narrow piece and they can teach it to each other. And they loved learning from each other instead of just me. That's another thing about online. You don't want to be too much you all the time. Guest speakers, peer instruction, yeah, mix it up a bit, okay? The other ones, I think you can pretty much see what we can do synchronously. Breakouts are really important because they can interact just with a small group of people. Do they get off task? Sure. Is that bad? No, because remember, interaction, good. Not interaction, bad. So even if they're chit-chatting a little, they're bonding, they're more likely to come to your class if they feel connected with each other. So let them do that. And you can pop in and out of breakouts anytime you want. We go into that a lot more in another webinar. This is more general. All right, So the cardinal rule of engagement: get out of the way of their learning. Whatever they can do without you as the intermediary, they should be doing. And for example, I'm going to give you one example of this, which is discussion forums. Oh, Paruzal is not correct. P-E-R-U-Z-A-L-L. I'm so sorry. I gave her links ahead, but I didn't give that one. Okay. I do not participate in discussion forums. I have my students do discussion forums. One of them is the leader, and they talk together. I read, and behind the scenes, if somebody's a little off base or there's some issue, I'm there to help, but I'm on the side. They lead the discussion, and they synthesize at the end. They read through all of them, and they write a synthesis at the end. They're in charge of their discussion forums, but do I grade them and give them feedback? You betcha, okay? But they don't need me as an intermediary, all right? Get it? That's the idea. Stay out of their way whenever you can. Stay out of their way. All right. So one more time for the folks in the back. What does engagement get you? Why do we do engagement? What does it get you? Who remembers? I'm giving you a minute to think while I pour the next glass of water. I've learned with these webinars, I have a pitcher of water because I talk a lot all at once. I also like to do it with my neon palm tree on one side and my. Okay, here we go. Ready? Participation. So engagement gets you participation. If they're engaged, they will participate. They will not participate. If they're disengaged, they're not going to participate. Here they are. Yeah. Okay, click, 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 click. No, you want them to participate. All right, and the last one, empowerment. If they participate, they will feel empowered. They will feel empowered, and that's what you want. You want them to feel empowered. And so I'm going to show you some ways that your students can act on this empowerment. So if they feel empowered, once you feel empowered, you kind of want to do something, right? You're like, oh, I feel empowered. What am I going to do? All right, world, here I come. What are you going to do? All right, and everybody's different. So I do webinars. Everybody's different, right? Okay. You know, my husband doesn't understand. Why are you doing these webinars? You can go out and talk to the world out there. Why are you doing that? Everybody's different. Okay. So here we go. Who's the liaison? Someone in your class would love to be the liaison. Who's the liaison? The liaison is the one that creates the web, makes people feel connected. Maybe that's the person that coordinates all the guest speakers and guests, or the little virtual field trips. You know, it's the person that kind of keeps people together and connects people with each other. All right, that's the liaison. Or maybe it's the person who checks that, you know, somebody feels a little left out and they bring them back in. Sometimes in a discussion, one person doesn't get any replies. Well, your liaison person could be, hey guys, let's remember everyone gets replies, you know, things like that. So there's always someone that really appeals to them to be the liaison. So that's empowerment. Let them do that. Another role, expert. Oh, I have to say something about the pictures I use. Always use free to use and share. I learned you do not want to use copywritten and licensed pictures. It's not fair to the people that created them. So I do a lot of searching, and it takes me a while to find free to use and share. So people wonder, you know, these pictures. I did make an exception with Harrison Ford. Why not? Warner Brothers. But generally speaking, you should always do that. And there's a way for you to do it. If you don't know, I can help you with that. Okay. So I made these different owls. So everyone's an expert on something, right? So let them share their expertise. And they can all share something very different. The peer instruction was only one example. That's actually a lesson, you know, but you don't have to even think of it that way. Let them share their expertise, because even though you're the teacher, they may know something you don't know. And I'm going to give you one example. I used to teach pronunciation. Yes, there's a course called pronunciation when you're an ESL teacher. And the whole course was pronunciation. And what I had them do was they needed to explain to us, and they had to bring in whatever they needed to bring in. They had to explain to us something that everyone in their culture knows how to do, but we don't know how to do. Okay, something we don't know about. And it didn't have to be culture. I think one person showed us how to tie a sailor's knot, which isn't cultural specific. But things, and they had to explain it. I mean, they had to tell us. They couldn't have us read about it. They had to demonstrate it. And while they were demonstrating, say it. And meanwhile, of course, I'm taking notes on their pronunciation. Okay, so, but they are an expert on the content. So they didn't have to worry about the content. Their issue was how am I saying it in English, okay? So we learned how to make a paper crane from the Japanese student, and everybody got to be an expert on something, and they felt good because, you know, their pronunciation makes them not feel so good sometimes. So this way they're empowered, they're an expert. I'm going to teach the class something, and it has nothing to do with the content of the class. It's not like the peer instruction. Get it? Different. Okay. All right, next is the leader. Now, there are a lot of ways to be a leader. One of the things I believe is that being the professor, I always say professor because I happen to be at higher ed, I forget, got people here at K-12 and everything. So, but when you think of yourselves as teachers, you know, you're kind of in charge, you're kind of leading, but your student, you want to lead from behind, and you want your students to take on some of those leader roles. So here are some ideas how to do that. Observe, give feedback, and assess. If you think of those as your roles, your role is to observe the learning, to give feedback as needed to your students individually or as a group, and meanwhile, you're assessing them informally and formally. But you know what? Your students can do that too. They can observe each other, feedback to each other, and do peer assessment, okay? And I think that's an important piece to realize. They can be leaders in that sense. And I have this framework for it, which I got from a very good friend of mine from Morocco. We've written articles together on flipped learning, and I've actually visited his school in Morocco. He's from Berkane, which, little known fact, is the clementine capital of the world, which I know because when you drive into town, you see a giant clementine. Anyway, off the topic. Anyway, he's the one that came up with SHAC. And SHAC is a technique of peer feedback. So it's really hard sometimes to get students to take that role, that role, you know, they just, oh, everything was great, you're great, everything. No. This structures it for them so they can decide, what am I doing? S, H, A, or C? Am I sharing something with my fellow student that I think would relate to what their work is doing? Or am I helping them with something that I think maybe I can give them, like that helping hand activity we talked about? Or do I have a question I want to ask them about it? Or do I just have a general comment of feedback to give them? Okay, so I find that SHAC really helps students to get more active once they feel in this empowerment piece, this empowerment stage. This gives them a way to act on that feeling of empowerment in a structured manner so they're not embarrassed because it's their peer. Okay. All right, next is we're thinking bigger now. We're thinking 21st century skills. Change agents, okay? So someone in your class is going to be so empowered by your instruction, they're going to want to change the world. Maybe you did a unit on recycling. Who knows? Whatever you did made them feel inspired to change the world, to go out and make a difference in the world. Ultimately, that's something we all want our students to do, right? We want them educate, lead out, right? We want them out doing something. Well, the center of that is creativity, right? So we want them to be at the top of bloom. So like we're creating fertile spaces, what are they going to create? If they're going to be a change agent, they have to create something that wasn't there to make a change. And these are the pieces that go with that: critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. So this is the change agent piece. Not all of your students will get to this point, but some of them will be inspired by it. And this, I think, is a graphic that encapsulates it and will help them to see the path toward being a change agent. And the last one I have to suggest is, who's the global citizen? Some of your students are going to start thinking more globally. Now, it doesn't matter what you teach. we're all connected, as we have unfortunately found out. We are all connected. Okay, so you want your students to think globally, to be global citizens, and some of them will. They will become global citizens, and they will find ways to participate in the larger world. And I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. So I gave you two examples of my own global citizenship. On the left-hand side, this is IRN. IRN is a wonderful organization for K-12. If you're in K-12, you want to be part of IRN. They are international online projects that link at least 2 countries at a time. There are 150 countries. I did a project with my friend in Morocco and a colleague in Virginia, and the 3 of us started an international film club where the students in the US and Morocco would watch the same film, and they would share online discussions and do activities around the film. And we would have synchronous sessions too, with guest speakers coming and talking about the film. It's a wonderful project. They have hundreds of projects like that, all of them designed to make kids in different countries feel connected. So involve your students, and no matter what you teach, there's a project for you. There's every subject you can think of, any subject you want. You can be in an IRN project. So find out about IRN. Okay. Also, the other thing I'm doing now is I'm part of the Learning Revolution, which is a 2-month online conference where we're all presenting. And I'm going to be presenting, actually this webinar, I'm going to be presenting the same webinar next Friday. And I'm going to do it on the early side of the day so I can get the other side of the world, because this would be a terrible time for them. This is kind of a local more, okay? So, so there you go for that Learning Revolution. And Learning Revolution is a lot of educators all over the world sharing their knowledge together, all volunteer. None of anything I'm talking about involves any money at all. I don't organize my life that way. This is all volunteer. Everybody sharing, connecting, feeling empowered, and helping others to feel empowered as well. Okay. And now we have our cardinal rule. So what's the cardinal rule of empowerment? Be there always. Always. I can't sing, that's the thing. I can dance though, and I love Alvin Ailey. I love Alvin Ailey. And this is Alvin Ailey's Fix Me Jesus from Revelations. It's a beautiful dance. You can see it on YouTube. And I tried to catch this shot, okay? So always be there for them. In order to remain empowered, your students need to know you're there to catch them, you're there to mentor them, you're there to love them. I have so many former students that I'm still connected to, and they still call me for support. And I don't say, well, you graduated, 10 years ago with your master's. What are you talking to me? No. In fact, I have 2 students who are actively engaged with me as they move forward in their career, and they have become leaders also themselves in their field, gone on with what I have taught them and enriching other people with it. A shout out to them. One of them is Nan Friedland, and she's gone into adult literacy, and she's leading a discussion online right now on how she uses WhatsApp with low literate adult learners based on a model that I taught her. I wasn't teaching her WhatsApp. This was years ago. MALP, the mutually adaptive learning paradigm, which is my actual research, my actual field. And so she studied that, and then she went on to share it with others. And the other is Katie Mercury, who is going on to do teaching. She has special ed, she has math, she has literacy, she has TESOL, she's gangbusters, and she's gone on from graduating, and she still talks with me just the other day. And I know her son has the same birthday as me, so we're kind of connected that way too. It's fun. But I wanted to do a shout out to 2 of my most empowered former students to show you that that's what you want. You want that, right? Okay. So once more, for the folks in the back, what does empowerment get you? What does it get you? I always drink my water during these slides, of the get you slides. What does empowerment get you? Ownership. Then they own the experience. And that's what you want. You want them to feel that they own the learning, that they're not just doing it for you, that they're doing it for themselves, that the learning belongs to them. Very important. All right. Oh, yes, our sponsor. One more word from our sponsor. So join Nice TESOL. We're getting close to wrapping up now, but don't leave because there are things at the very end you're going to want to see. So you want to join, and it's Join 2020, your special discount. If you're a New York ESL teacher, if not, it's not relevant. But if you are, you can get CTLE for the pearls of wisdom that you just gained from this webinar. There'll also be a recording posted, and all members can see the recording, or friends of mine can see the recording. And I want to show you this last poll, poll number 4. This poll it has to do with reflections, and I just want to show you. You think for free use and free share, you can't get good photos? Look at that photo. That's free to use and share. Isn't that a gorgeous photo for reflection? So you can see some pretty good ones if you look. You have to hunt. Okay. All right, let's do the last poll. This is your last poll. And the last poll is, actually it's, I think, did I skip a poll? It's poll 3. Oh, I skipped one poll. That's okay. I skipped a poll. It's all right. Here's reflection. While this webinar is fresh, oh, you can't see it yet. There you go. While this webinar is fresh in your mind, would you be willing to reflect on your experience in a Google form? Now, I'm going to ask you to go to a URL in Google and reflect. It's just 3 quick questions, but it gives me feedback. And I need feedback, right? Just like I had the pre-work and then the webinar, and now the feedback, the reflection. That's what you want in a teaching loop, right? Preview, review, okay? So please tell me if you're gonna do it or do it but later. And the last one's funny, you know, it's forget about it, like New York. But I had someone in here from Pakistan the other day, and I think he was the one, it's anonymous, so I don't know. I think he put forget about it because I think he didn't get the forget about, and I think he was thinking, oh, I might forget about it. I might forget. Anyway, don't forget. I want you all to do that, okay? So I'm going to give you the link. The poll I missed, by the way, is not that important, but it was to ask you if you were planning to teach synchronously or asynchronously or both, or you weren't sure what that even meant, because I'm big on synchronous. I really think the synchronous piece is important. And I think if you've seen this whole webinar go by and you don't see the importance of synchronous piece, then maybe you need to look at the webinar again. Okay, so this is your reflection page. Go there now. Go there right now. Right now, okay? There's a Google form and the link is in the chat. Now, before we leave, I do have to thank someone who's been behind the scenes. She's my good buddy, Christine Rosalia.
No problem.
She's here, and she's actually here in the room the whole time, and she's been wonderful, and she's helped out in many ways in the chat this whole time. And so let's all give her some applause for helping out. I think that you can, I don't know if you can do applause in Zoom, but anyway, applause to her. You can do applause. Yeah, there's applause. You can do an applause. You can all pick the applause. Yay, Christine.
Thanks, guys. Some people came in. I didn't, it's always hard to give a webinar and then read the chat. So that's what I was doing. And so I tried to get some folks in that came in a little bit later. And so what I'm going to do, the very last link that I'm going to post is a link of the videos. And so it's a form, and then you'll be able to kind of catch up. But sorry about that confusion earlier. And thanks to Helene.
Okay.
I mean, she did a fabulous job with her hand.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure you do the reflection, watch and share the recording for anyone who wasn't here, or if you missed part of it, watch the recording, see the whole thing, okay? It was great having you. I enjoyed having you, and I hope you got a lot out of it. Now that you know me, you're connected to me, so feel free to contact me anytime. I'm very easy to get to on email. I'll answer you within minutes. I'm a little nuts that way. Please, I'm here for you. Take care. Bye.
Elaine, can I ask you one question actually? Keep you just for a second. When you mentioned the learning revolution, I'm going to put in that link for folks. But do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? I did a quick search while you were, in case people wanted to follow up. You're going to be presenting again there?
Well, I'll be presenting, yes, I'm going to present this same one next week, but it's the same one. I might start doing more too. It's April and May, so I might do one a week. But they're wonderful webinars. There are people like me from all over the world who are, they post their topic, and you go and you look at the calendar, you look at the schedule, you look at the topics of the webinars, and you sign up for whatever one interests you. And there's something for everyone. And it's very international. It's not necessarily US dominated at all.
Sounds fantastic. And do folks know how to save this chat? Because I tried putting in some links, but if you want to save the chat next to where you type, you'll see 3 little dots, and you can press those dots and it will say save chat. Does that work? Or you can type in your email and I can send you the chat as well if that doesn't work.